Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited for everyone, including myself, to learn from today's guest and fellow entrepreneur, because not only does he have an amazing business that I so admire all the work that's gone into and how seamless it is for customers to use, but I also love his origin story, because this is somebody who was successful in his professional career, but woke up thinking to himself, there's more to this. I don't just want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I want to do more, and you'll hear the clear story of the inspiration and the catalyst behind him starting his own business. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Chris Randall. Chris is the owner and CEO of a company called Sweep. Now, Sweep is a residential cleaning application that provides a platform for easily customizing and scheduling cleanings without the need for quotes. Gosh, what a frictionless process for customers. Contracted cleaners then are able to accept these jobs on their terms. The app is primarily catered to busy professionals and families who need a simple solution to home upkeep. And I'm so excited. I tease the guests' bios a little bit more, but Chris has such a cool backstory that I want to hear from him personally rather than my recount of it. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Chris Randall. All right, Chris, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brian. I'm very excited to dive into this.
Heck yeah, likewise, because I obviously know a bit about your backstory, but I'm excited for you to share it with listeners firsthand. So let's start there, Chris. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Chris? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so kind of in short, when I kind of growing up, going through college and, all the professional background, I was working with Pepsi, worked my way up through the company and kind of saw myself a future there. Well, I got to a point in the corporate ladder, I guess you could say, where I realized that I wasn't happy. The people ahead of me weren't happy. So I just kind of saw a future of unhappiness, really. So it kind of got the wheels spinning, and I've always had an entrepreneurial mind. I mean, going back to even high school. So for me, I was like, okay, this is a good opportunity to start looking into that path. So what ended up happening was on a long drive to work one day, I usually was driving about an hour to work every single day. So a lot of time for thinking. I was listening to a audiobook called Master MBA, and they were talking about businesses, what they have in common, like as far as successful businesses. One thing being that they're typically services that people hate doing themselves. And my first thought was laundry. I mean, I hate doing laundry, so that was kind of always my holdup. And then the next thing was businesses that update with technology as things change. And my first thought was like Uber, like, oh, it's a very and this was back in 2020, so it was a little more fresh. And I was thinking to myself, that's a exemplary company for technology. So kind of had a light bulb moment, honestly. I just was driving and put those two thoughts together and literally was like, is there a cleaning Uber or any sort of, easy access cleaning services like that? So I kind of got obsessed, and about over the course of 3 months, I'd say, of telling friends and family about this idea that I have and researching online, I couldn't really find any other businesses like that. And it was kind of I got to a point where I was like, this is a great opportunity. So I actually, in 2019, went on Upwork and found a app developer. His name's Paul, and he was a new app developer. I was a new entrepreneur. So the thought was, hey, I'll give you a good deal to build the app if you kind of like my test subject for this. So I said, sure. So 20 grand, and we had an app, and it got launched in 2 weeks before COVID. So, think of an optimistic new entrepreneur just launching a business, and then after launching it 2 weeks later, COVID hits, and I couldn't even go into people's homes. So I had this great idea, and then it kind of came crashing down, all from COVID. And then what I ended up doing was reaching out to a lot of property management companies and other commercial businesses to start doing some cleaning for them during that time when we couldn't go into people's houses. So that was a kind of a blessing in disguise, because it helped expand my portfolio right out the gate. But really the bread and butter of what Sweep is, with the app and with clients being able to place orders and have that clear pricing, that kind of is more so something that started in 2021. Since my launch period, we couldn't really talk to people in COVID. So basically 2021, things get lifted. I actually was pretty close to calling it quits, if I'm being honest. I almost decided, you know what, this wasn't the right timing. Wasn't bringing enough money in to support myself, especially after I quit my corporate job with Pepsi. And luckily, I stuck out just long enough to where, and when Michigan opened back up in February of 2021, that I said, okay, let's do this. Let's roll with it. And now looking back, it's been 5 years in business. And it's been quite the journey. It still is, but I just am super excited with that I stuck through with it, and I'm here today.
Yeah, likewise, Chris. I also am very excited about that, because good for you. Like this is the good stuff. You've built something amazing that solves a gap. I love how your story begins right there, of solving that gap, a real customer need. But I'll be honest with you, Chris, I think my favorite part of the story is that you had so much, not only excitement, but also belief in what it is that your idea was, and in the mission and vision that you had, that you invested. I mean, you spelled it out for listeners right there. You invested $20,000, which, you're right, Paul gave you a great deal on that. You invested $20K to have this thing built and to deploy it. What was going through your mind at the time? Because the story makes it seem like you had no reservations, but what was the reality of that time period and that decision you made?
Yeah. So obviously, for anyone who's just looking to invest in anything, $20,000 isn't, it's not chump change by any means. For the app development world, it was a small amount of money, but for me, that was a scary time, taking that leap. Luckily, I had a decent amount of savings built up through my time with Pepsi, but as soon as that ran out and I spent the money on app development, it was kind of like, all right, this is a real thing. And really, when I quit my job at Pepsi, that is when it really became real, because you have all that money on the line and you have nothing coming in. You're really banking on yourself. So then, especially when you have that COVID shutdown, you're kind of wondering, what are we going to do next? And really, the only answer was just to hustle and grind. I mean, I was going door to door to different apartment complexes, trying to sell Sweep, get some clients in the door. And really, if it weren't for that hustle, I probably wouldn't have made it out of COVID. So for me, you really, starting a business, you've got to be willing to put in the legwork for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that part of your story so much, Chris, because most people, quite frankly, hustle is a bit of a lost art, especially with technology, and especially considering what you have built with Sweep, which it's now an incredible brand. I know you're actively involved with your local Chamber of Commerce. It's visible in your area, and I'm super excited for your expansion plans as well in the future. But before we get there, I love the fact that going door to door, I imagine that Chris Randall at the time was thinking, I launched a software company. I launched an app. Like, what am I doing with in-person door-to-door knocking and selling to people, the manual, the old-fashioned way? But there was no pride. There was no ego there. You did what you needed to do to get it off the ground. Talk to us about how that differed. And obviously, the COVID was the big factor there. But obviously, that's wildly different than the launch plan that you had originally anticipated. I would imagine that you had an app-based launch plan that you quickly pivoted from. How different was that? What did you imagine it being versus that reality?
Yeah, totally different. I mean, honestly, looking back, it's like, wow, would you have done this if you knew that all the hustle and grind that was going to take? It's tough to say, because I expected to have this app that had all these automated systems built in, and being able to use social media and Google and all these different platforms to take it where I need to go and to market it and everything to the audience without having to personally be anywhere or personally do all those things. So that was kind of the thought process to start. And then what the reality was, I was going door to door to different places selling sweep. And I also was doing a lot of the cleaning myself in the beginning, just to try to make that extra money as well that I lost from quitting my job at Pepsi. So huge. I mean, ego has to be put to the side, especially starting a business, because like I think I had a decent ego at Pepsi because I moved through the ranks so quickly while I was at Pepsi. I mean, I was there for 6 years. And I probably got promoted darn near every year while I was there, and kind of saw that. I mean, that fed my ego. I was like, yeah, I can do this. I'm natural at this kind of stuff. So then going into my own business and having to do all these tedious tasks, and it was a humbling experience. But I think honestly, it kind of crafted me into the man I am today, and I wouldn't really change anything because. That background I think is huge just for the mindset of building a business overall.
Yeah, so well said. That's powerful advice right there for all of us listeners, that there are many times, and it's not happening for Chris just at the beginning. It's not happening for me just at the beginning. Many times we are brought back to rolling up our sleeves and doing that dirty work, whatever it may look like. A little more literal in your sense, I guess, Chris, talking about doing some of those cleanings yourself. I want to talk about that because I'm so fascinated by the concept of sweep. Or most apps, I always wonder about kind of both sides of the coin, is that you need people who are looking for cleaning services, but you also need cleaners on the other side of it. And you don't want either to log on there and to find nothing because they'll never come back. What was your approach for dealing with that network effect that you really needed to reach critical mass?
Yeah, so kind of just the cleaner side of things in general, like because sweep is really a two-way marketplace for the client and the cleaner. So the cleaners, they'll see the jobs. They'll know where it's at, how much they get paid for it, what rooms are on the order. So they have all this information in front of them, and they're contracted. So the really cool thing about sweep is I don't really have trouble finding cleaners, because most of the cleaners, if you kind of look at the cleaning industry as a whole, you have the biggest chunk of it is your like individual cleaners that are businesses. So like if you go on Facebook and forum groups and things like that, and someone says, hey, I want a cleaning, you see 50 comments of all these individual cleaners on there. Those are the types of people I like to work with, the ones that are being recommended and things like that. So essentially what Sweep does is we say, hey, cleaner, join our platform and you can expand your work or your business. If your goal is to build your own business, you can use Sweep to help you get there and kind of fill in those gaps in your schedule so that you aren't, having multiple days without any work. And then also, like what a lot of my cleaners do on the Sweep platform is they decide, you know what, I like this better than doing my own thing because I don't have to do any of the marketing. I don't have to do any of the invoicing. All I have to do is go show up and clean. And a lot of times they make more money on the Sweep platform than they do individually because when you look at that group of 50 people that are competing for the job, someone's putting, their value and time very low to get that job. It almost always happens. So they're saying, okay, I'll clean this for $10 an hour. Cool. They get the job. They have a little income, but then they're underselling themselves. And it's this vicious cycle that you see a lot in the industry. Versus some of the larger companies that you have, like a Molly Maids, for example, that, might charge you $80 an hour. So it's this crazy gap in the cleaning industry. And I'm kind of hoping that because Sweep falls right in the middle and that we're able to help a lot of those individuals who have aspirations of being a cleaning service, be able to do that and not have any friction in that process like they currently do with having to bid with others. And then for myself, it was kind of a situation where just starting everything out, I decided that I needed to be the one getting boots on the ground to, one, learn the industry myself because I didn't have background in the cleaning industry. I just saw it as an opportunity for the technology, but getting in there, cleaning myself, I learned a lot, was able to really formulate a lot of what sweep is because I was there. For example, like one of the biggest questions I have is how do you price each room individually? Because most cleaning models, you have hourly pricing, which to me doesn't make sense because of all the cleaners I have on my platform, none of them clean at the same pace. I mean, you can look at the same job. I might have a cleaner complete in 2 hours versus the same cleaner completing in 4, or a different cleaner completing in 4. Same result, just different paces. So the hourly right off the bat to me didn't make sense. And then the other was square footage. And the only reason that square footage doesn't really make much sense to me is a couple things, because square footage, a lot of people don't understand it and they can't visualize it. So for me, offering a square footage price doesn't really solve the transparency problem. But then also, I noticed when I was in a kitchen, for example, let's say I had a tiny little 100 square foot kitchen and another 500 square foot kitchen. Most of the time when I clean those, the time of cleaning wasn't really impacted by the size at all, because all the kitchens had the same components, a fridge, an oven, a sink, countertops, cabinets, etc. A kitchen's a kitchen. So what I found was even the smaller kitchens, a lot of times all that dirt and grime and grease was all just accumulated into one or those small area versus the big ones where it's spread out. And I didn't see enough of an impact in size to really have that impact pricing. So I decided to go by the by room model, which is as clear as it gets, and saying, hey, we have a kitchen, it costs you this much. You have a bathroom, it costs you this much, and offer all the various rooms so that you can build a custom order.
Yeah, I really appreciate the way that you share those things, Chris, and especially the way that you think about those things, because as a consumer, I think you raise so many important considerations in any industry. I think this conversation from a strategic perspective that we're having is far beyond just the cleaning industry, because as a consumer, what do I value? Do I value my home being cleaned faster or slower? Well, if I value my home being cleaned faster, then why would I pay on an hourly basis? Then I'm actually valuing someone taking longer. So the way that you do it, I think it's super innovative, and I know that over the coming years we're going to see those trends across all industries. So kudos to you for being ahead of that trend. I want to talk about market penetration on the flip side of that coin, because obviously you're in West Michigan, and in your part of the country, you are very actively involved in the Chamber of Commerce. Like I teased earlier, you have local sponsorships, which that must feel so cool, seeing your branding at local events. So Chris, talk to us about that local marketing approach.
Yeah, the community is everything, especially when starting a business. Especially in the West Michigan market. If you don't know anything about the West Michigan market, everyone is very slow moving. Everyone is very relationship based. So it's not like a fast pacing Miami environment where you say, hey, I've got this cool house cleaning app. This will help me save time when I quick put an order and do it. I learned that West Michigan wasn't probably the best market to start, but it's where I live and where I'm from, so that's what I did. Now, the key pieces for my growth, it's been the Chamber of Commerce and Better Business Bureau and all these local sponsorships that I've been able to obtain out here. And what I've noticed is just investing in your communities and not really looking at it from what am I going to gain from this, but how can I give back, has really been the ultimate ticket to success in this market specifically. Like the Rockford Chamber of Commerce is, where I'm probably most active because I live in Rockford, Michigan. And it doesn't hurt that my fiance is the executive director of that chamber, but which really, it's funny because that relationship on its own catapulted a lot of relationships with other businesses in the area. But what I found is like just sponsoring like an expo at the high school or a golf outing, or just doing things and being there and meeting people, telling your story, letting them know who's behind the scenes. People tend to care more about that than the business itself. I've had countless people look at Sweep and say to me, hey, so you bought a franchise? And I'm like, no, I started it from the ground up. I tell them my story and they're like, oh, I'm in, let's do it. Like, just that relationship side of thing is huge. And I encourage any business owners that are listening to this, to get involved. Like, you can't like sponsor an event for $1,000 and expect there to be results overnight. It is at least a year-long process. Like, don't take that lightly, and don't skip it, because it's not all about money in those situations either. A lot of those, your Chamber of Commerce has a lot of free events and things you can do to meet people without having to spend a bunch of money. So yeah, I encourage you to invest in certain sponsorships and things like that, but overall, just be present and get to know the people that are part of your community, and their word of mouth and them knowing who you are is going to take you further than you even imagined.
Yeah, such important advice there, Chris. I will very transparently say this while we're on the air together, that I love your company for the solution that you've built and how frictionless it is for consumers, but also the cleaners that you've talked about, serving that side of the coin. But on top of all of that, Chris, I so admire and appreciate your executive mind, your entrepreneurial mind, because it's so clear to me that you love the strategy part of it as much as you love everything else. And that's why even talking from a business model perspective, I think is fascinating and really revealing here on the air, because just going through your website, I can see even you think about recurring revenue, bi-weekly visits that people can sign up for, weekly, monthly, whatever schedule that they're looking for. Obviously, recurring revenue is a dream for every single business owner. You also mentioned a little bit earlier, understanding the differences in time it takes to clean for different cleaners. It all makes me wonder, what are the metrics bouncing around in the mind of Chris Randall on a daily basis? What are some of those metrics that you're paying attention to in your business, in your fulfillment, in your onboarding, your customer retention? I'd love to hear what analytics you're paying attention to.
Oh my gosh, it depends on the day. I mean, like, so, the key things that I look at every day are like my weekly revenue, how many jobs I have going on each week, and monthly. I like to, broaden it and compare it to other years. I like to look at my Google Analytics and just see how different ads are performing, as far as, what target audience I have, who's responding to the ads, who should I be displaying ads to. But overall, yeah, I think for me, because of the way that the model is, doing things that kind of coincide with the model, like upselling deep cleanings or upselling various add-on services, things like that are so easy to track and have my cleaners do it for me, kind of. Because if you think about it, if let's say you ordered a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom, and a cleaner comes out and takes care of it for you, well, if they're there and they're able to walk through it with you and talk to you about what your expectations are, what you'd like to see, where you struggle with time, and they truly can understand that, then they can really direct you where you need to go. Because someone who orders a standard cleaning in a bathroom might not actually understand what all is included. They're just like, I need help. But having that full understanding, the cleaner might say, you know what, you ordered a standard, but you could really use a deep clean, because your biggest concern is your baseboards and your vents, for example. So that's like something that it's really cool to track that when my cleaners are able to do those upsells and see how much they can impact the bottom line, just for actually genuinely helping the client at the same time as fulfilling the order that they placed, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. And it actually begs a bigger question, Chris. I don't know the answer to this. You and I hadn't talked about this off air, so I'm totally putting you on the spot in real time. But I want to talk expansion plans, because I know that you are a big thinker, and obviously you're really honing in on a system that works inside your local region. But I also know that you are not only brilliant, but you know the impact and you know the solution that you've created and brought to the marketplace. So my question is, when are you going to expand? What do those expansion plans look like? Where's your mind go when you start thinking expansion?
Yeah, that's something that I think about every day, pretty much. I really do want to expand beyond the West Michigan market. Part of my, I'd say, strength and weakness is that I'm such a perfectionist with what I'm offering to different markets that I've really been trying to hone in on my systems before I scale. And how does that look as well? Do I franchise it, or is this something that I work on, kind of slowly expanding the service area? So those are two things that I've been kind of playing around with. And one of my biggest focuses this year has been getting those systems down on paper to where if someone were to, say, buy a franchise in Florida or in Tampa area or something, I could literally hand them a handbook and say, hey, follow this and you're going to be successful, and have all the background there. So that's something I'm building up right now to be able to expand. So it is coming in the future. Hopefully, before the end of 2025, I'll at least expand to the Detroit market on the other side of the state. But I think another important aspect to the expansion is the technology. So if you look at a lot of small businesses, you notice they don't have apps. And I didn't really put two and two together when I started Sweep, but realized really quickly that app development is an expensive beast, and it's hard to navigate if you don't understand code like it's your own language. You're going to run into some snags, and unless you get absolutely lucky with the developer, I am on my second developer currently, and the development process is a pain. I mean, it's constant, running over deadlines, budgets, not getting things improved on the user side that you'd like. When there's bugs, it's kind of all in the hands of the app development team. So things like that, all really want to have nailed down before I bring Sweep to another market, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's a little bit of a hint in there, because you gave a shout out to the Tampa, Florida market, which is a bit local to me, Chris. So yes, please expand here. We would love to have you on the Gulf Coast. So much excitement there. Clearly, you believe in the powers of technology so much, and I totally join you there. So I just want to ask this question, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, not specific to the cleaning industry, but how's AI factoring into the way that you're running and growing and systematizing your business? Because obviously, when we do talk expansion, when we do talk about a replicable model for you to one day franchise or expand internally, how much are you leaning on and using AI in your back office workflows?
Yeah, AI is a game changer. I use it a lot. And if you don't, then you're missing out, because it just eliminates every task that I need done. I swear that AI saves me hours, and I still don't feel like I have enough time in the day. So I don't know how people can get through their day-to-day without it. Whether it's, a cleaning contract or any sort of system that I want to put in place, I basically just describe that system to ChatGPT, and it puts it out in a neat, wrapped up package for me. It's amazing that I've had it give me different formulas for spreadsheets. I've had it direct me on changes that I need to make on my Google profile. Email, I just did something I was having an issue with emails bouncing. So I used it to help find the problem that I was having. But yeah, overall, just any sort of documents or responses to clients, it's so nice to be able to put a email chain or something in ChatGPT and have it give you a suggested follow-up with whatever tone you want. That way you can kind of really hone it in and make it sound like yourself, but it takes that initial work out of it and a lot of the tedious task of typing the same things over and over again, and puts it into such an easy way to make yourself sound professional and just be efficient overall with your processes.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, is basically, I feel the same way as you, that I can give it anything as rough as it might be, and it will smooth out those rough edges and make it presentable. So totally agree with you on that. And I also agree, I have no idea how people are doing things without AI these days. So really cool to hear that you're leveraging all of that as well, which I expect nothing less from an incredible tech company such as yourself. But this last question is super broad, and I have no idea which direction you're going to take it in, Chris. And that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners, knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us, you are a fellow entrepreneur, but it's cool because you and I were both previously entrepreneurs once upon a time, so I think your advice is going to be really profound for them. What's that piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Wow. Yeah, that is very, like, I can go a lot of different directions with that. For me, I think, as corny as it sounds, I think you should, if you have an idea for a business and it's something that you're passionate about, you found yourself in corporate America or whatever 9 to 5 you might have, and you're sick of it and you're like, I want to be my own boss. I say, like, the specific business doesn't matter as much as the person behind it. So if you're, for example, wanting to start a business, you don't know what you want to start. It doesn't necessarily have to be a passion of yours what the business is, because it'll become a passion what you make of it. So for me, sweep and cleaning, I never had any background in the cleaning industry. It wasn't anything that I ever thought I'd see myself in or cared to be in, but I kind of turned it into my baby and learned the industry and created the cool logo and did all the cool things with it. And I think you need to just stop focusing so much on what are you going to do, because that, I feel like, holds up a lot of people so much. They need this perfect thing, or they need this super innovative thing. And while sweep is an innovative thing, being in the industry, I've realized that's not what it's about. It's more so about the systems they have in place, how you build that business in the back end, trying to build your business in a way that you're looking at it from the outside in and not from someone who's like the technician in the business. So I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to start a business with something that you do every day, just because I feel like you're going to get yourself caught up in a lot of the ebbs and flows of the actual technical work that you need to do versus looking at the systems and the overall picture. So I think, to really summarize that, just start your business with whatever comes to mind, and work on building something great that's like not just based on the technical work that you're doing. Do something, how can you build it like I don't like using the word or using McDonald's, but I'll just use it because it is a great franchise as far as having like the duplicatable processes and things that you can bring from franchise to franchise. That's what I'm trying to do with Sweep, is create systems that I could give to any location. So I think as long as you do that and have that entrepreneurial mindset versus the worker mindset, then you can be successful with it. But if you feel like you're going to be, you're doing it just because you're good at, plumbing or something, maybe look at it from a different perspective. Do you want to be the business owner, or do you want to be constantly doing that work for the rest of your days? So I don't know, does that kind of help summarize what we were looking for there?
Yeah, 1,000,000%, Chris. And I'll actually tack on to that, because I think that advice is not given often enough in entrepreneurial circles. But having been an entrepreneur for 17 years up to this point myself, and obviously I interview entrepreneurs for a living, Chris, that advice that you chose to give our listeners, that is incredibly powerful. And it goes against so frequently in life and school and everything. We're told to follow our passions, but I've learned from my own pivots in my own entrepreneurial career that any business is a good business. Because I'll put a spoiler alert out there that, Chris, whatever happens with Sweep, you have become an incredible entrepreneur, an incredible innovator. And that means that any business you get into one day after you sell Sweep on a very successful scale, you're going to be a 100 times better entrepreneur because of the fact that you've been building. And I think that that's the power. And Chris, you are such a living example of what it means to get an idea and then to take massive action and to serve people. So huge kudos to you. I'm appreciative for that advice. I'm also excited for listeners to check Sweep out, because you've built so many cool things with your branding, with the frictionless sales process, with the way that you lay your business out. So drop those links on us for listeners who want to go check out Sweep. Where should they go from here?
Yeah, I appreciate the shout out, and thank you so much. So if you want to check out Sweep, even if you aren't part of West Michigan, check out our website, sweepllc.com, and just look around, like especially if you're kind of looking at it from an entrepreneurial mindset, and kind of just see some of the things I've done. If you really want to play with it, see how much your house would cost. And that's a great tool that you can use, because most places you can't just, they always say you got to get a quote to see the price and have someone come out. Well, check out the Sweep app, see how much your house would cost, and you might have a better idea. And then also, for any of you not in the West Michigan area that can actually place an order on Sweep, check us out on social media. Give us a follow at Clean with Sweep, and hopefully we'll be coming to your area pretty soon.
Yes, I love that. And listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find all of those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You've also heard how much Chris just genuinely loves business and entrepreneurship and strategy. So we're also linking to his personal LinkedIn if you want to have an amazing entrepreneur in your network, or continue the conversation with him, or maybe be part of his expansion plans. Then find those links down below. Otherwise, Chris, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.